Welcome once again to Captain Fred's Aviation Theater. Today our program is about the powered parachute, and with us is Dick Carl, who is the owner and pilot of this powered parachute. Dick, what is a powered parachute?
Well, Captain Fred, the powered parachute is nothing more than a parachute that has propulsion by an engine. And it actually sits on a frame, a tricycle type frame, and 65 horses, pushes it down, the parachute inflates, and you're airborne.
It's a swamp buggy with a parachute attached?
Basically, we don't like to hear those types of words because it is actually a flying machine and a very safe one, I might say.
Let's explore the family tree, the history of this animal. I guess we would start first in 1882 with John J. Montgomery and Otto Lilienthal and what was called a hang glider.
Yes, Fred, that's a little bit before my time, but that's true.
Then hang gliders became popular again in the early 60s, and they flew hang gliders at Torrey Pines and around. And I remember then some brave soul, hooked up a motor on a backpack and had a powered hang glider, and then they went one step forward and put a go-kart on a hang glider, and that evolved into what we call ultralights.
That's right.
Now, a while back we did a program on paragliders. A paraglider, you shake like a bed sheet, 5 running steps, and you're airborne. So this would be a powered paraglider.
Actually, this particular machine is, you could say it's a paraglider, but it's powered, and it's a very simple operation. We have a parachute that's laid out behind the machine. You start the machine, it has a pull
start. Okay, let's stop right there just a minute. It's not just a parachute that you've tied onto this.
No.
It's a parachute made especially for powered parachutes.
Yes, actually, Notre Dame had a bunch of engineers that got together to design this particular machine, and this was back in the late 60s and early 70s.
The Fighting Irish?
That's right. Mm-hmm. And of course, an entrepreneur took up the idea, and they started production of this type of machine in 1985.
Now the parachute has tubes in it, and
yes,
the front end is open to
yes,
let the air come in and inflate it.
Yes.
But the back end is closed, so there's no place for the air to go.
Yes, actually it's a ram type chute, and what happens is that when you start moving, and with the prop wash and so forth, the parachute actually inflates and it forms a soft wing. And of course that wing reacts just like a wing on an airplane.
Whether it's fabric or metal or
That's
air,
right,
it's a wing.
That's right.
Now when you start the powered parachute, you go forward, and how do you lift off? In an airplane you pull the wheel back.
On this particular machine you have a throttle, and the throttle, of course, they designed it so that as you pull the throttle back, that means you want to go up. As you accelerate down the runway or the grass strip, wherever you're taking off from, at about 28 miles per hour, it will lift off. And that's the only control that you have. As far as turning, you have foot bars.
Well, now wait, let's stop there. To go up, you add more throttle.
That's right.
To go down,
you decrease.
You decrease the throttle.
That's right.
And that's it?
That's it.
All right. Now, there's a clever way that you make your turns. Tell our viewers about that.
On the parachute itself, of course, there's risers. And at the edge...
Risers are cords or cables?
Actually, they're cables.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is you have 2 foot bars that are connected to the outboard edges of the parachute. If you push in, it actually pulls down the cable, which actually deflates or stalls the outboard edge of the chute.
The cable is connected to the back corner of the parachute.
That's right.
And it pulls it down, creating drag.
And then the machine has a tendency to turn into that. And of course, once you turn as far as you want to, then you just release and it flies straight and level.
Exactly the same as a parachute, except in a parachute you pull with your hand.
That's right.
It's exactly the same.
Exactly the same principle.
So, more throttle, go up. Less throttle, go down. Pull the left rope, go left. Pull the right rope, go right. What else?
That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
That's very simple.
And it's safe, because if you lose an engine, it reacts just like a parachute.
Tell us about if you run out of gas.
Okay.
Or you have an engine out. You don't jump out and pull your parachute, because you've already got a parachute.
Exactly right. What happens is that if you have an engine failure or you shut the engine down, your forward descent is still between 28, or your forward speed is between 30 miles per hour.
And you become an unpowered parachute.
Exactly right. And just before touchdown, you do exactly the same thing as a parachutist does. You actually push on both bars to take both risers, pull them down, and it slows you just like a parachutist.
If you pull them both at the same time, they don't turn.
That's right.
It just slows you down.
That's right.
Sounds pretty good.
It is.
I believe I read that NASA has added powered parachute training for the astronauts.
I've heard of that. I haven't researched it yet.
I saw some footage of one of the woman astronauts flying one of these, and she said that NASA has added it to the syllabus for astronauts.
Right. Well, it's a fine way to go for low and slow flight, and it's a good platform to take excellent pictures.
Now, you said it would do everything at 30?
At 30. Take off
at 30.
Cruise at 30. Lands at 30.
Land at 30.
Yes.
What about maneuverability?
Maneuverability, of course, using your foot bars, it's connected to the risers. If you want to make a turn to the left, you just push the left foot bar, and it makes a gradual turn to the left.
Now, I've seen these with pontoons, so you can land on water.
Yes, there are kits that you can put on them for landing on water. Also, they use them as agricultural sprayers. They have a kit that you can put on with about a 20-gallon payload, but they can get in and spray areas that the actual aerial sprayers can't get to.
So you could do crop dusting on a small scale with one of these.
That's right.
I've also seen these with skis.
Yes, there's a fellow up in Canada that flies in the dead of winter. And of course, the skis are an attachment. They fit on it, and it's an accessory.
Now, they used these in a James Bond movie, The World Is Not Enough. And it was 3 bad guys, I think.
Yes.
They came in with these, and they landed, and as soon as they landed, they detached the parachutes, and then they became a snowmobile.
Yes.
So there's an infinite variety of things you can do with it.
I imagine you could put it on a boat and make a swamp buggy out of it, too.
You could, yeah. Let's talk again just for a minute about the parachute itself.
Certainly.
It's made out of ripstop material, the same as a parachute.
Yes, it is.
So even if you stick a knife in it, it won't run.
Right.
The cut will be there, but it won't get any bigger because it has a zigzag ripstop design.
Exactly right.
Also, the cables that connects the frame to the parachute are 15,000?
10 to 14,000 pounds.
10 to 14,000 pounds.
Which is about 7 to 8 times more than you actually need. So there's a safety factor built in there.
And the engine is air-cooled because it's exposed out in the air. But in addition to being air-cooled, you also have a radiator.
That's right.
Tell our viewers about that.
This particular model, this is the Bombardier Rotax 582, and it's liquid cooled. But of course, any engine sitting out in the open, the air rushing by it also gives it a cooling effect.
So it's both air-cooled and liquid-cooled both.
And the operating temperature for this is between 140 and 160. So it's actually a lot lower than an engine in an automobile.
What kind of a mix do you put in the radiator?
It's a glycol type mix, about a 50-50 mix.
With water?
Yes,
Okay. Today we're visiting with Dick Carl and his powered parachute. Dick, would you reach up and show our viewers the pull starter, the hand starter?
The starter is located right over and above the back of the head.
So you reach up here.
And actually, you start at the beginning to warm it up. You're outside the airplane. But inside the airplane, you can reach up, pull this, and pull it down, and do a start that way.
And then you let it warm up.
Right.
And this is the throttle control. And if you want to go up, which means accelerate the throttle,
right,
you pull the throttle back.
Right.
If you want to go down and decelerate the throttle, you push the throttle forward.
Exactly right.
Now, this stick here is your ground maneuvering control. And if you look at the front wheel, you pull this stick back and forth, and it turns the nose wheel or the front wheel left and right for ground maneuvering. Now, after you take off and you want to maneuver up in the air, these are the bars that you push on.
Exactly right.
And they pull the rear corner of the parachute. Now, in addition to pushing them with your feet like this, you could actually, like a real parachute jumper, just reach over here and pull the ropes with your hand, right? Okay. Now, you have seat belts, which would hook around and hold me in place. And you recommend that they wear a helmet.
Always, yes. And you'll notice at the front there's a set of mirrors.
Yes.
Those mirrors are to show you when your canopy is up over the top of you. And you can see there's a curvature, so they cover the whole perspective of the parachute.
It would be reassuring to look in there and see that you had a canopy. Right?
That's right.
Yeah. Now, you have earphones.
Yes, this is hooked up. I have a VHF radio.
You have a handheld radio right here.
Yes, which is plugged in, and this plugs into a junction box. And when you're carrying the second passenger, they have a helmet like this, and you have an intercom, so the engine noise doesn't bother you that much.
I've seen a lot of big motorcycles that have intercoms like that.
Yeah.
Now, your instruments here, let me bring the throttle back. You have an altimeter.
Yes.
And you have RPM.
Right.
And what is this one?
With the RPM, there's also like a Hobbs meter. It tells you how much time you put on the engine. Okay, the instrument to the right there, you have water temperature and a fuel gauge. It tells you how much fuel you have.
Both in the same instrument?
Yes. And by the way, this carries 10 gallons of fuel, which is good for about 3 hours endurance.
3, 6, 9, so you got 3 hours of flying.
That's right.
At 30 miles an hour is 90 miles.
There you go. Okay. And on the left, of course, you have the exhaust gas temperature. That kind of tells you how the engine's functioning, whether or not you have the proper mixture and so forth. And by the way, this is an oil mix. It has an oil tank on the top, and it actually mixes with the fuel.
My first motorcycle was a Yamaha.
Is that right?
And you had to mix the oil and the water together.
Yeah.
But Yamaha devised the bottle and the tube so that the oil and the gas mixes together, and you don't have to stop and pour it and mix it. So it'd be kind of clumsy in the air.
Yeah. And this one's elevated and has a tube running down. It kind of has a drip effect.
So it's gravity feed.
Yes.
Not like an IV in the hospital.
There we go.
Okay. Okay. Well, let's take a walk around and point out the different things on this flying machine.
Okay, fine.
Dick, in aviation, they have thrust, lift, drag, and weight. Lift is the most important. That's what makes you fly.
Certainly.
But next is thrust. Let's talk about the engine, or the power plant, and the propeller. We'll start with the engine.
This particular engine, of course, is a Bombardier Rotex, 65 horsepower.
Look how small it is.
Yes, 2 cylinders, and it has dual mags.
Now, our viewers will see that it has 4 spark plugs.
That's right. We have 2 for each cylinder in case one fails.
It's double wired.
That's right. So consequently, that's a safety factor. It's kind of built in. Very compact, very efficient, and this particular engine produces 65 horsepower.
Compact, yes. Efficient, Yes. My first airplane was a 1946 Aranca Chief, 65 horsepower, same as this.
Yeah.
And it was the size of a microwave oven.
That's
four
true.
times bigger than this.
That's true.
So Rotax has come a long way.
Oh, yes.
And almost all ultralights have
Yeah.
Rotax engines.
This particular engine is built in Austria.
Yes. And it drinks how much?
3 gallons per hour.
3 gallons an hour, and
Yeah.
puts out 65 horsepower.
Right.
A beautiful little engine. Coming back from the engine produces the power, and it is transmitted to the propeller.
That's right.
Now, you have a 3-bladed propeller. Why 3 blades instead of 2 or 4?
3 blades a little bit more efficient, and it does cut down on the noise a little bit. This particular prop is a composite prop. It has a metal leading edge at the top for dings, for rocks, and that type of thing. And
the silver part that they see is the leading edge.
That's
in the middle,
right. Mm-hmm.
And the black part is composite.
That's right. And it's in 3 sections. It's actually 3 individual blades. So if you really ding up one blade, you can actually replace it with 1 blade, and it's not going to be that much of a problem.
So if you were flying over somebody's marijuana field, and which I know people that has happened,
Yeah.
and they take a shot at you,
Yeah.
and they break one of your blades off,
That's right.
you've still got 2 blades left that will function.
Generally speaking, if the weight is not too far out, it will function okay. If you get an excessive vibration, it probably would be better to shut it down and land.
And become a parachute.
That's right.
But then when you go to replace it, you don't have to buy a whole new propeller.
Exactly
just
right.
the 1 blade.
That's right.
And this is composite.
Right.
Tell our viewers what composite is.
Well, it's a sandwich type process. They put them together. It makes it ultra strong. You can actually see at the end there's kind of a sandwich affair here.
Mm-hmm.
And
for the viewers, for them to visualize it, it's like epoxy with an SOS pad ground up in it.
exactly right. That or honeycomb.
And it's
Yeah.
what Burt Rutan developed.
That's
for
right.
The Very Easy and the Voyager that flew around the world.
Around the world, yes.
It's,
a lot of people don't understand the strength behind it. And a fact I found out the other day, you know why all of the airplanes that are composites are white?
No, I don't.
One of the reasons is because if they were a dark color, they would absorb heat.
That's
and
right.
heat, of course, has a tendency to make it too bendable.
That's
you
true.
know.
I was going to mention something about the composite. Composite is 20% the weight of steel, but twice as strong.
Exactly
So
right.
it's superior to steel.
Yes, it is.
You mentioned about why the airplanes are white. One time I put a windshield cover on an airplane, and I painted the N number on the windshield cover. Black. And the next day I came back, and the N number was etched on the windshield. The black had absorbed the light.
Heat, yeah.
What else would you like to tell our viewers about the airplane?
Well,
the landing gear is special.
The landing gear is special. It's actually 2 bars of fiberglass, reinforced fiberglass. And in the 17-year history of Buckeye, they have never broken one of these landing gear struts.
Well, these struts are made out of the same stuff as bulletproof vests.
Exactly right.
So they are strong.
Sure are. And this particular craft does not have brakes on it because your landing roll is not that far. Generally, when you touch down, you'll only roll 25 or 30 feet.
Well, in the old days, airplanes didn't have brakes.
You just
they had a landing skid on the tail, and you just drug to a stop.
Yeah. And I guess if need be, you could drop your feet down and kind of put your feet on either the pavement or the grass.
Or you could put a stick down
there we go.
go-kart.
Yeah.
Tell our viewers about the strobe light.
Well, this is a quick with dual strobes, and what happens is that this allows you to fly a half hour before sunrise and a half hour after sunset, so it actually gives you an extra hour of flying time.
Very good. Why is that you can fly an extra half hour with the strobe light?
Well, because your position is being shown to other aircraft in the area and so forth, and the strobe light, of course, you can sometimes see up to 25 miles.
Without the strobe light, you would have to be on the ground when?
And you'd have to be on the ground at sunset, and you could not take off until sunrise.
So you could come out early in the morning and fly before you went to work.
That's right. And here again, it takes one man about 10 minutes to prepare it for flight. So it's really not that difficult.
Tell our viewers who makes this machine. I know the biggest one is Buckeye.
Buckeye is one of the leaders. There are two others that are six-shooter has a good reputation, and Parachute. Parachute is not new in the field, but they're now getting dealerships, you know, generally worldwide.
Now Buckeye is in Yakima, Washington?
No, Buckeye is in Argus, Indiana.
Argus, Indiana.
The six-shooter in Yakima, Washington, and don't ask me where the Parachute is at.
Okay, well, wait just a minute. The six-shooter is Yakima, Washington.
That's right.
So if somebody wrote to six-shooter power parachutes, Yakima, Washington,
I'm certain
they would get
it.
And the other one was Buckeye.
Buckeye.
And it's from
Argus, Indiana.
Argus, Indiana. So
and they're both on the internet.
If somebody wrote to Buckeye Powered Parachutes, Argus, Indiana, they would get that.
Right.
And the third one was
Parachute.
Parachute.
Right. And there are now dealers as close as Las Vegas.
And they would be in the yellow pages or on the internet.
They'd be on the internet. If they go on the internet and just type in parachutes, or if they type in Buckeye or six-shooter, then the internet will search it out for them.
Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you very much, Captain Fred.
As always, this is Captain Fred saying, I love airplanes and I honor the people who fly them. And today we have been visiting with Dick Carl and the Powered Parachute.